A big win over the weekend for the Utah Hockey Club. Plus, we've got a Red Wings preview and a wild card watch coming your way on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us here on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. We appreciate you making us your first listen each and every single day when it comes to the Locked On Utah, to the Utah Hockey Club. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño, and we have actually a pretty packed show today. We're catching up on the weekend, a big win over Tampa Bay. Then we're going to talk about the Red Wings game, which will be the day you most likely hear this if you're listening on a Monday. And, of course, our wild card watch update as well. So, Robyn, first of all, I think we have to look at this win over Tampa Bay as something that I don't want to call it unexpected because I need to see Utah beating these teams right now, but this goes as a feather in the cap of where the Utah Hockey Club is right now in this playoff push.
It definitely was a nice change to what we had saw earlier in the week, right? It was, the loss. You took a look earlier in the week to the loss to Edmonton, and then and beating Buffalo, which is that's fine. You're supposed
to beat Buffalo.
You're supposed to beat Buffalo, so it's like okay, that's that. But a win over Tampa is huge, and just because they're trying to find that right momentum, we find their right stride. Getting a win against a team that is still a top level team that still has Stanley Cup, caliber talent. So
now we're talking about Tampa Bay. They're third in the Atlantic and only 2 points out of first. I mean, they're a very, very good hockey team.
Yeah, they are. And it's funny because to me, I was like, okay, I'd like to see Utah give a fight. I mean, I think the important thing is, Tom, and the point I'm trying to get at, but get all out of this is Utah very well knowing that every single game is a playoff game. So it's imagining, okay, what are they going to do when they go up against a team like Tampa? Are they going to kind of go in? Maybe there's going to be a little bit of fear in them, like what happened with Edmonton, or are they going to rise to the challenge and give us the best level of hockey that they can provide for us? And they ended up giving us the latter.
It's interesting you bring that up, Robyn, because and one of the things I want to talk about is Tampa Bay as a model for the Utah Hockey Club and what they're trying to build. But you make the point of what were they going to come out and do and how are they going to progress through the game. Logan Cooley even said that early on, he felt like Utah Hockey Club was just trying to hang in there, but now this team has the confidence that they can beat those top teams and teams. It doesn't matter if they have superstars. It doesn't matter who's on the other side of the ice. That, I think, shows some growth in the Utah Hockey Club in that, I mean, look, I don't want to accuse anyone in the NHL of standing around and gawking at other players in the NHL, but there can be a sense of awe when you're going against a guy like Connor McDavid and Alexander Ovechkin, even a Sidney Crosby. There's, especially for the younger kids, and this is a team that has younger players on it. But Robyn, to me, that says a lot about what the veterans then have brought to this team as far as helping them get over that hump.
It really is, and I think a lot of it too is discussing what how to play, how to act, how to react, how to feel during these high pressure kind of games, and I mean I'll be real, Tom. Every single game should feel like a high pressure game at this point in the season for the Utah Hockey Club because every game practically is a playoff game for them. Any loss will severely hurt their chances of making the postseason this year. Maybe that's also part of, played a factor. Maybe they kind of already had in the back of their head. They know they need to win, rise to the challenge, whoever they play, to put on that effort. And it also does help when you have when you get a defenseman like Mikhail Sergachev playing against his former team.
Yes, that also does help. I mean, there is a little impetus, right? The thing to do back in the day, and I'm sure it's probably still done, is to put either money on the board or some sort of incentive. Let's say for the boys, whoever gets the game-winning goal or something like that, or a team win. That player typically promises something against his old squad. Robyn, I'm going to use this opportunity to tell a very difficult story to tell because there's so few times you can tell it. But this is perfect. So most players put money on the board, right? But Rudy Poshek, and this story comes courtesy of Stu Grimson, who used to be my color analyst in Nashville. Rudy Poshek had one of the most interesting nicknames in all of hockey. He was known as Rudy Pot Pie Poshek because instead of putting money on the board, Rudy would say he would put up a pot pie that he would make himself. So he would make, and apparently it was a very good pot pie. I mean, the guy was good at making a pot pie. So, but that was what he would put on the board. No money, no, hey, I'll buy you a beer or whatever. Nope. So Rudy Pot Pie Poshek would put up a pot pie for incentive on the board for whoever would, score a game winner or whatever. So that there's not a lot of places you could tell that story, but it tickles me every time I get a chance. I think that's
absolutely love that. And it's nice too. Like, I mean, getting those little incentives in there definitely does. I think it does put that little bit of extra motivation. It's like, hey, you know what? Let's go for something like that. Maybe even if it is a little bit beyond, the putting a little bit of money on the board and saying, hey, like, I'll give you X amount if you do that. Sometimes when it's a little bit more than that, I think it's what makes it even more fun.
What would you put on the board, Robyn? And folks, if you're watching or listening, I'm interested to hear what you would put on the board as well. Throw that in the comments.
I don't know. I don't think I've even put that to thought.
I would put my Buffalo to work here. Like if I had to come up with something not, money, I'm making up a batch of wings for the team, right? I mean, I've got the expertise and the background knowledge to put together a mean chicken wing setup. So different flavors, different kinds. Yeah, absolutely. I could do some dry rub. I got my own sauces that I make. So I'm doing a batch of chicken wings.
It's interesting you bring that up because one of the things that was popping my head while I was trying to figure it out is using my heritage to my advantage. For those that don't know, can't see on video, I am of Mexican and Filipino descent. Both amazing, both cultures of amazing cuisine. If you've ever had the honor of trying either one, most people have tried Mexican food. Filipino food a little bit less so. That's what I could probably put up there. It's like, hey, you know what? Let's get some Filipino cuisine up in there.
That would be a special and unique thing to you. So I think that would be awesome. But, let us know in the comments. What would you put up on the board if you're trying to incentivize your teammates to come out with a win? So, Robyn, before we leave talking about the Tampa Bay game, a couple of things. I just want to put the stats model up here real quick for the game recap. 6-4 win. Shots on goal were fairly even. Tampa Bay only 26, Utah 25. Power plays, Utah 1 for 3, Tampa 0 for 1. Actually, I believe that's reversed. I think it was 0 for 1 for Utah, 1 for 3 for Tampa. Faceoffs are close, 34-31 for Utah. Giveaways, takeaways. But hits, Utah out-hits Tampa 23-13. I think that's an interesting one because you and I talk about it all the time. The way this team is supposed to be built is to play physical hockey, to knock other teams off the puck. And if that style seems to work against Tampa Bay, who have won multiple Stanley Cups, that gives me some hope that, I mean, look, we know if you get in as the 8 seed, you can do some damage no matter what. But if they're starting to evolve into this now, Robyn, which is what we've been calling for all year, I like that.
Yeah, that's like always been my biggest hope. How many times, I feel like it's a broken record, I have called like, hey, this team is supposed to be physical. Bill Armstrong brought in these players. Bill Armstrong brought in your Jack McBain, brought in, and or re-signed like a Lawson Krause and done a lot of these people to bring in and either via extension or signing or trades or whatever. because of their size. They are big, they are physical, they are fast, and they are designed to kind of use their body to get into those dangerous zones. And as you mentioned, to separate the body of the other guys from the puck.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, that's the way to do it. And even just following through on your checks doesn't have to be hard, but you have to follow through. You have to make that contact. And that way, later on in the game, when someone's going back to play a puck, they're looking over their shoulder. Who's coming at?
Absolutely. And you make a good point, because I'm not asking the Utah Hockey Club to be the next Broad Street Bullies. But what I am asking is use their size to their advantage. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm asking for.
And you don't have to be big to play physical. You know, you don't. You just following through. Again, you don't have to blow a guy through the glass. Just commit to making the contact, and a lot of things can happen. I do have one other thing I want to get to about this whole. I've got the bullet point up there on the YouTube if you're watching it. It's Tampa, the UHC model. I want to talk about that, and I'll get to it here in a second. And today's show is brought to you in part by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. I like the no shells. That's what I do with the grab and go at work. I have a bag in my desk. And so if I'm just needing a little pick me up, a little pep during the day and the coffee's not quite doing it, maybe it's because, I need a little protein in there. So I always like that to have handy, and it's a lot easier. Although I know if you like the in shell, they have that one. It's a classic favorite. You crack till your heart's content. So either way, you can't lose. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And today's show also brought to you by Post District. Discover Post District, home to 4 of Salt Lake's newest and most stylish apartment buildings: the Register, Post House North, Post House South, and 801 Flats. Each residence offers its own unique take on luxury urban living, with features like waterfall kitchen islands, floor-to-ceiling windows, vaulted ceilings, and spacious patios and walk-in closets. Enjoy premium amenities, including the city's largest residential gym, a year-round pool, golf simulator, massive TV wall for sports watch parties, and more, all anchored by a one-of-a-kind community. Step outside and find yourself immersed in Salt Lake's hottest dining and nightlife scene, with award-winning spots like Urban Hill, Mensho Ramen, Level Crossing, Melancholy Wine Bar, and Sunday's Best just steps away. Whether you're looking for a studio, 1, 2, 3 bedroom, or a penthouse, find your perfect home today. Visit liveatpost.com or call 801-590-6247. Mention this ad for an exclusive incentive. All right, Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño back here with you on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. If you're still here and you haven't subscribed to the show yet, please do so. We appreciate that. It really helps us out as well and helps us bring more great content to you. You may have noticed, especially if you're a long time, Robyn, we're getting more and more local sponsors on here, and that is a direct response to our increase in subscribers. So we absolutely thank you folks for jumping on board with us. And hey, I'm going to keep encouraging you to tell your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great opportunity to really grow the community here, because I feel like, and I could say this, like we embrace the community. We listen to all you guys, and we'll hear a lot of different things. I still want to go ahead and restart. I'm still in the process of getting that going, but the local Grow the Game series, reach out to local individuals and have them talk about what they're doing to grow hockey in Utah, and this is what we're about.
Absolutely. And again, we thank you very much. And if you haven't subscribed by now, jump on board with us. The show is growing, the momentum is growing, and we love talking about the Utah Hockey Club. All right, one more point I want to make about Tampa Bay here. A couple of interesting things that came out of this series, and we're going to see Tampa again here coming up next week. Bill Armstrong talking about how he has studied the Tampa Bay Lightning's model, the way they acquired their championship winning defenseman. And head coach Andre Tourny talks about the Lightning's consistent excellence for years. And that's a recipe his team needs to look at. And Robyn, I can feel your look on the consistency portion of this. But even the players like Logan Cooley said he wants, to see Utah have that stature. It's crazy. If they make they will make the playoffs this year. It's 8 years in a row. That is a model of consistency, and that is something Utah has not always had.
No, they haven't. You take a look at, again, their history of some of these players. The Arizona Coyotes had a lot of struggles, kind of going up and down and figuring out where they needed to go and what kind of team they wanted to be. Had a lot of identity crises. They did make the playoffs once in the last, was it like decade? That was during the bubble. They faltered in. They got to the play-in game and they won. They beat beating the Nashville Predators and then going and just getting absolute curb stomped by the Avalanche the very next round in the actual first round. But not very many people do count that. People there's a lot of people just kind of put an asterisk next to that year.
And I understand if you do. I understand if you don't. But what I will say now is that moving forward here for the rest of this year and into the summer, this is your chance to establish that consistency and begin. The run doesn't have to begin this year. If it does, it's nice. But it doesn't have to begin this year. But the growth has to continue. So as we look ahead here, coming off that 6-4 win over Tampa Bay, last game of a 3-game homestand coming up on Monday against the Detroit Red Wings. Most likely you are listening to this on Monday when the show drops. And then a couple of days off before a road swing that takes them out to see both Florida teams at the end of the week. So a rematch with Tampa on the horizon and then the Florida Panthers back-to-back. That's going to be interesting unto itself. But Robyn, Detroit is in an interesting spot right now. The Red Wings are now on the outside looking in. They're 2-8-0 in their last 10. They have plummeted back to earth after being in that wild card spot just a couple of weeks ago. They're now 5 points out. They have 13 games left. So I just don't see Detroit making the playoffs here. I mean, it's too many teams to leapfrog.
It very much is, and it doesn't help that they are in a conference right now that is pretty stacked lately.
Yeah,
the Eastern Conference. You just take a look at a lot of teams going on there. It doesn't It's funny because every time I say it doesn't compare, somehow those words will come out to bite me in the butt, and a Western Conference team will win the Stanley Cup. But the Eastern Conference has just been stacked lately.
I mean, it's hard not to look at the standings and just say it's easy to look at the Washington Capitals 102 points and no one else is to 90 yet in the East. And say, well, Washington's strong. But then you look at the West, you've got Winnipeg at 100. Dallas is now at 92. Vegas is at 90. And then, of course, the question is fair to be asked, well, is that because there's weak sisters around them or what? But I think everybody's got to play their way in or out. Same thing for Utah. And you know what? Strength of schedule down the stretch, which we're going to get to here. We're going to talk about the wild card watch in a little bit. But right now, Robyn, they have to take advantage of a Detroit team that's not playing well, that confidence is fragile. They need to jump on these guys.
They really do. And they need to take advantage of it. And I'll kind of repeat what I said at the beginning of this show, Tom, or earlier in the show, is no matter what, no matter who Utah is up against, they need to treat every single game like it is a playoff game, like they are in the playoffs, no matter what. Because, and I said it before, and I'll say it again as we get, and when we'll even get much more into it later, a little bit later in the show, but any amount of points, those 2 points matter so much going into this part of the season as we wrap up, getting if they want any chance of making the postseason.
Yeah, but when you got a team that's only won 2 of its last 10, it's time to pounce, and hopefully they're able to do that. And Detroit on the road, a little below 500, so not great, 14, 16-3. But, the other encouraging thing here for Utah is they are playing better at home. And this is something we've been waiting to see all season long. But it finally seems like Delta Center is indeed turning into home ice advantage.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you don't even have to be there. Like I said, if you're watching on TV, you can feel the atmosphere at Delta Center getting better and better every single game. And I feel like, Tom, you and I kind of talked about this before. I feel like that we kind of had a feeling that would be the case. It would get better over time because, I mean, yeah, sure, there's going to be the hype in the first couple of weeks, but there still needs to be people to buy into what they're watching, right? They need to understand. Right. They want to be able to get that emotional bond, and it takes a number of games to continually go to these games and keep doing it for these fans to really grow that emotional bond and scream as loud as they do, and to be as loud as they get to make it a harder place to play for opposing teams.
Absolutely. Robyn, I want to take a look at the FanDuel odds real quick here for this game. So when you look at the money line, minus 162 for Utah and then plus 134 for Detroit, over under 6.5, anything grab you here?
Yeah, it's really interesting because it really does show based off the trend, because last time it was a little bit closer, these two teams played. It shows the trend, as you were mentioning, where Detroit has been falling. It really puts the opportunity to kind of, if you were a betting person, to put some money towards the Utah Hockey Club. It doesn't show on this page, but the point spread for this game, or the puck line, depending on who you're talking to, is 1.5 goals for the Utah Hockey Club at plus 152. To me, that's intriguing, Tom, because that is a value pick. That is something that's like, okay, because that's the difference between an empty netter, which I think can very well happen. You can very well see an empty netter happen, or Utah can have a firm grip on this game through the entirety of it. So if I'm looking at something, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at that point spread right there.
I like that. I like it a lot. All right. 9:00 Eastern time, 7:00 Mountain time, puck drop for the Red Wings and the Utah Hockey Club. All right, we're going to get to our wild card watch update, and we are taping this on a Sunday. The Blues will be in action. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. So you're probably, like I say, watching this on a Monday. So there's going to be a couple of moving parts here, but stay tuned because we're going to keep you posted on what's going on right now. And I mean, really, what are Utah Hockey Club's chances of making the postseason? We will discuss.
And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop managing your money and start building wealth. I know for me, like I've got accounts all over the place, where I got my primary bank account, I got my 401k bank account, I've got a investments account with it gets all over the place. Plus, not to mention, sometimes I forget that I'm spending so much on food delivery because it's, I always find it convenient, but then I forget where'd that money go. Monarch really helped me figure all that out and kind of get me back on the track of where I want to go to manage my finances. So I don't have to go through all those apps. It really just helps me keep it all in one. So don't have to worry too much about that. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Use code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
Tom Callahan and Robyn Leaño here with you, Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Thanks for sticking with us here, everybody, as it's time for us to get into the wild card watch and the perspective again. This is as of our taping here on a Sunday afternoon. So the St. Louis Blues are going to be in action here as we pop the graphic up for those of you on the YouTube side. For those who aren't, we will talk our way through it as well. But Robyn, the big 6-4 win for Utah. And then as we mentioned, their schedule is obviously Detroit Monday and then on the road 27th at Tampa Bay, 28th at Florida. Not an easy week for the Utah Hockey Club. But as we look around, Calgary's coming off a 4-3 win on the road at the Islanders, and then they have Seattle and Dallas this week. Vancouver is in the middle of a nightmare road trip. It's crazy. It's 6 games away from home. They go all the way out east and swing back. This week's portion of it is at the Rangers, in which they lost 5-3 in regulation. That's big. And then New Jersey, New York, and they will continue to make their way back across the country. And St. Louis, for whatever reason, just seems to not be able to lose right now. They beat Chicago 4-1. They will play Nashville on today, a Sunday. And then they have the Montreal Canadiens, who, by the way, still holding on to the 8th and final playoff position in the Eastern Conference. Playing really well right now are the Canadiens. That could be a challenge for them coming up on Monday here. But, I mean, St. Louis has kind of separated itself as the team to beat, I think.
Yeah, I mean, St. Louis is I think some people have referred to St. Louis as the hottest team since the Four Nations, and it shows. Really, if you take a look at a lot of their, a lot of how they have been in the standings, they're on a 5-game winning streak at the time of this recording. Don't know the result of against Nashville, but also 7-2-1 overall in their last 10. They are definitely the team to beat. It seems almost as if they are ready to just run away, waiting for something to fall for Calgary, Vancouver, and Utah to create the separation to lock, at least get closer to locking themselves into that final wild card spot.
This road trip for Vancouver could be what takes them out, honestly. And I'm not saying that to kind of dump on what the Canucks are doing, but this is a difficult stretch for them. I mean, Calgary, actually, I think if I remember correctly, Calgary had the best chance and the best look at getting in as recently as a couple days ago. But now St. Louis, I know their strength of schedule is not real high. And I mean, looking at where they are right now, Robyn, I mean, this road trip, as I mentioned, so started with a loss on the 20th in overtime to St. Louis. So that was a 3-point game. Didn't help Utah at all. But now they've lost to the Rangers. They're going New Jersey, New York, Columbus, Winnipeg. And that's, number one, that's a lot of distance to travel. And it's a long time away from home. That's a 2-week road trip. That is going to be really, really hard on the Vancouver Canucks. They could fall out by the end of March.
They very well could. And that's, that could really help the Utah Hockey Club. And really, if you take a look at, we talked about the game against Detroit for the Utah coming up today, but also Vancouver against the Devils today. It really makes me think interesting to say, okay, here is an opportunity for Utah to potentially leapfrog Vancouver in the standings. I mean, again, I'm not assuming the Devils are going to beat the Canucks, but if you're hoping, and if you're, and if you are, whatever you believe in, let's say you're praying to the hockey gods or whatever it is, whatever else you believe, and the Vancouver Canucks go ahead and lose to the Devils, Utah beats Detroit, they officially are leapfrogged. So that will put 77 points for Utah, move up in the standings. There'll be tying of Calgary. Yes, Calgary will still have 2 games in hand, but that puts them closer, as much closer as they can get, and it makes the playoff battle a little more interesting for the UHC.
Now, I know that there's fans out there who are saying, okay, Tom and Robyn, but let's say St. Louis beats Nashville, which you would assume they do, but of course, you got to play the game. Yep. That puts them 6 points up, 2 games in hand. Well, 2 games in hand is 4 points if Utah takes care of business, so they could. And I would not put it past them to be able to do that. So that closes that gap back to 2 if everything works out. So that's one reason why I have hope for Utah. And the other thing is, I'm looking at St. Louis here. For the rest of the month of March, they only play 3 more games after the Sunday game against Nashville. And they play Nashville again in Nashville, but they play Montreal and Colorado, which is not going to be easy. They play them in Colorado. But then, Robyn, this is how they finish the season, and this is what's a little concerning for me. Out of everybody down the stretch, 3 of the 6 are playoff teams. They have Detroit at home, Pittsburgh at home, Colorado at home. So 2 of those 3 seem to be easy games. Then they have Winnipeg Road, Edmonton Road, Seattle Road, which is going to be difficult. Then, Robyn, this is the one I'm circling on the schedule. Again, last game of the year. It's in St. Louis on April 15th. Utah Hockey Club. Wouldn't it be something if that game, when it comes down to it, is the deciding factor as to who gets into the wild card?
I have been looking at that for a while now, and I'm like, if everything goes right for Utah, as long as they take care of business, and if St. Louis doesn't really have and doesn't somehow surprise and power their way through all these like incredible playoff teams down the stretch, that very well could be the deciding game here. And it'd be really interesting if that were the case, especially knowing what we know, what Clayton Keller loves to do against his hometown team.
Yes. Could be a Clayton Keller inspired performance to put Utah in the playoff on the final day of the regular season. And Utah's schedule isn't bad down the stretch. I know the back-to-back Florida teams here at the end of the week doesn't look great, but they've already beaten Tampa Bay. They have Chicago on a Sunday, but you can't look past Chicago. Then you do have a chance to beat the Flames, and that's at home. And then you have the Kings, playoff team, Jets, playoff team at home as part of a 5-game homestand, then Seattle and Nashville. Seattle seems to give Utah fits. Nashville, they could be playing spoilers. They end with 3 on the road for Utah. So it's at Dallas, which is going to be a tough one. But then at Nashville, back-to-back, the 14th, Monday, and then 15th in St. Louis to end that regular season. So it's not easy to end on a back-to-back on the road. But if it comes down to it, and those are the 2 games you really need to get in, you've got to find a way. You know, the playoff teams find a way to win those games. And if Utah can be maybe a 600, 650 team down the stretch here, I think they've got a great chance of getting in.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, what I will also say is, I mean, and it kind of was alluded to it a little bit, but you also want to circle that game against the Flames on the 1st, yes, because that is another team that is theoretically, based off just points percentage, ahead of you, right? They still are ahead of you, and you want to do whatever you can to leapfrog them, because at the end of the day, if we're still what we're seeing, Tom, is St. Louis is kind of putting the stranglehold and at least putting their keeping themselves towing the line in that final wild card spot. Utah takes care of business and leapfrogs Vancouver. All that's left is leapfrogging the Flames, and then it's just Utah and the Flames. Everything goes. I mean, just Utah and the Blues. Everything goes right down that stretch, and Utah's got to do what they got to do, whatever it takes to get those wins, to find those wins as best they can. But more again, even more so, the extra 2 points against the Flames, because that's not a 2-point game. That's like a 4-point game right there.
Yes, absolutely. And we talk about teams controlling their own destiny. Who's in the driver's seat? Hey, if you win enough games, you will control your own destiny, and that's what Utah's got to do. So, you know what? Again, let us know what you would put on the board on the locker room if you were going to try to motivate your teammates. I put up a bunch of chicken wings. Robyn is putting up some Filipino cuisine, and that would be yummy. I would try extra hard to score the game-winning goal from my goal crease just to get the rewards. But I will say this. It can get creative. I'm kind of curious what everybody could do out there. Maybe you have some kind of crazy skill that, we don't know about. So share that with us as well. So Robyn, where can everybody find us to do that?
Yeah, you can find us just about everywhere on social media. Primarily, you can find us on the app formerly known as Twitter, currently known as X, at LO_NHL Utah. You can find me at Robyn_Leaño also over there. Robyn Ice Time on Blue Sky.
I'm at Tom Talks on Blue Sky, where, as I keep telling you, I spend most of my time these days. I do check in occasionally on Twitter at Callahan on Air. It will always be Twitter to me. You cannot tell me otherwise. So it's all right. You know what? At this point, I don't know. I feel like all of social media is going to collapse on itself anyway. But in the meantime, if you want to talk hockey, we're there for you. you got questions, hey, maybe they'll pop up in a future show, or we will get back to you right away. But we have used a couple on the show, and we do appreciate you sending us the suggestions or the thoughts. And you know what? We're always happy to hear from you out there. So, all right, till next time, we will catch up with you, and we will look back at this point at a Red Wings, hopefully victory for the Utah Hockey Club, and we'll see where we are in the wild card spot and all that. It's great down the stretch. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. I'm so excited, Robyn. There's no better time of year.
Oh, I love this time of year. It just really gets to you. It's the best time of year.
Yes, every day is an adventure. All right, thanks for tuning us in. We'll talk to you next time on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.